In this movie, we're going to take a quick tour of the file system hierarchy standard. On Windows, the root of the file system is the C drive. The C drive also happens to be the first drive on a Windows machine. The way Windows works, every disk or partition gets a label. So the first drive gets a C, the second drive automatically gets a D, the third drive gets an E, and so on. Also, there is no distinction between a disk and a partition just by looking at the drive letter. So right now, look at my drives and devices. There is no way to tell if you're looking at 4 different drives or 4 partitions on the same physical drive. Of course, you can always query the operating system for more information, but the alphabets, the drive letters alone, don't tell you much. When you look at an absolute path on Windows, the drive letter is always included. So I can see here that Scooby.jpg is on the C drive and Shaggy.jpg is on the E drive. On Linux, the situation is quite different. The file system is structured like an upside-down tree. The / is the root of the tree, and everything else inherits from the root. If you take a look at this tree, for example, traveling from the top to the bottom, you'll find 2 files, Scooby and Shaggy. If you examine the absolute paths for these files, you'll realize that there is no way to tell which drive or partition you're on simply by looking at the file path. And that's because Linux introduces a layer of abstraction between the physical location of a file and its absolute path. We're going to take a closer look at storage in subsequent videos, but for now, you need to understand that any folder on Linux could be in a separate physical drive or partition, and that's a crucial distinction from Windows. So I'm going to say that again because you really need to understand it. On Linux, any folder at all can be mounted to a different physical disk or partition. As I said before, the root is the beginning of the file system tree. Any folder that is not explicitly mounted to a different device will share the same device as the root. The boot folder contains the files required to start the system, for example, the kernel itself. The dev folder contains the nodes for attached or virtual devices. The etc folder is reserved for configuration files that are local to the machine. Since you've decided to become a sysadmin, you're going to be spending quite a bit of time in this folder. The home folder stores the personal files and data for each end user on the system. Every end user except for root has a corresponding folder inside home. The media folder contains subfolders that are used to access media such as USB, DVD, and CD-ROM. The root folder is the home of the super user. It is not to be confused with a file system root. The Unix Systems Resources folder is for files that can be shared across multiple machines. What we've just covered in this short movie is not an exhaustive listing of the folders in Linux. This is just the ones you're likely to find in most Linux deployments. Here is your mission if you choose to accept it. Using any means available to you, I want you to go ahead and find out what type of information is stored in var temp bin sbin and mount. This is a very practical course, and from start to finish, we are going to be spending most of our time in the terminal. From time to time, I'm going to be giving you exercises wherever I feel it's necessary. For the last mission, you probably used Google, and that's okay, but it's not necessary. If I go ahead and run hierarchy, well, you can see what we have here. This is the bin directory, and you can see what it contains. And down here, we have the mount and the sbin directories. So I want you to spend some time in here, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Thank you.